So we've had another terrorist attack today in Streatham in South London. Um, Unfortunately, this is becoming normalised, and with each attack, it's almost less shocking. My concern is it will be normalised in the sense that Irish Republican attacks were in the London of the 1970s and 1980s. Where you had a bombing every few weeks. Um, The good news is the only fatality, if there is such a thing as good news in this context, is that the only fatality in this case was the terrorist himself, by the name of, I believe, Sudesh Aman. Um, all due respect to the Met, they acted quickly, decisively, and they took down a threat. He had a fake suicide vest, but they can absolutely, they have to make instantaneous judgments, and these are highly skilled professionals that are protecting the public. I think we need to respect that. Um, those who say there shouldn't be a shoot to kill policy, when you have a dangerous terrorist who is on the rampage, I really don't see any other credible alternative when they have to make that sort of instantaneous decision. Now, like I say, he was the only fatality. There were three people wounded though, and ostensibly, if people watch this, others would have been affected by it. Um, but I think the real issue here is that's going to infuriate a lot of people. I've calmed down now, but I must admit I was fuming about this earlier. Is the old story: this guy had been released early. Now, justice officials can gloss it over whatever way they want, but early release, even if it's a standard practice to let people out halfway through their sentence, that is early release by definition. Or it's when you have these combined sentences of so many years in prison, then the other half of the sentences in the community. Here's the fundamental problem: there is deep anger in the public every time this sort of thing happens, because the perception is those in a position of power are not doing anything to stop it, and they're actually enabling it. I mean, there is a credible argument, I think, to be made that bodies like the Sentencing Council, who are responsible for issuing sentencing guidelines, including early release, the probation people who make that decision, they frankly have blood on their hands, the blood of the three people who were wounded. It sounds like a harsh assessment, but it's difficult to see it any other way, because it is their judgment, their recklessness, and frankly, their insanely stupid decision making in these cases that is allowing this to happen. So, what we need to have is a situation where we have more honesty in the sentencing system. I would prefer to have a weak sentence that at least is honest, then we could complain about it and get it changed, rather than this person, and it isn't just terrorists, it's also violent criminals, gets a sentence of, say, 5 years, 6 years, um, but they're out and free. It's dishonest and it absolutely infuriates the public. And I don't think that the Sentencing Council really understands that. I'm going to make a video about the Sentencing Council because I've been looking at the website recently and there's a lot of things to say about that. But, they cannot say that they are in touch with the public if they do not understand the anger this causes. Because the perception is that the public is being put in danger because dangerous people are being released. Sure, keeping them in jail longer will be expensive, but that is the price. That's a price worth paying if it means keeping us safe. I mean, I'm not personally frightened of being injured or killed in a terrorist attack, but I'm in a small city. It's unlikely to happen here. But this is becoming a frequent problem in our capital, and it's absolutely unacceptable. And it isn't just Islamic terror or far right terror, it's also gratuitous crimes, violent assault, acid attacks, arson. These are destructive, life changing crimes. The people responsible need to get much longer sentences that reflect the gravity of their crimes, including, by the way, young offenders. I believe, and I'll come back to this with my outlook on the Sentencing Council, but one problem is with young offenders, there's a focus on rehabilitation. As far as I'm concerned, someone who's going to knife a stranger shouldn't be rehabilitated. They should be punished first before there's any notion of rehabilitation, because they're a very dangerous individual. A 15-year-old who would knife a stranger, if that's what they can do at 15, what are they going to do at 25? I really think it's not just that it's the overwhelming public demand to see this, but it's the right thing. It's a responsible thing. So it's good to see Johnson and Patel talking tough. I imagine at this point, I speculate they're going to now push through the legislation that they proposed, and it shouldn't be a partisan blame game. Stories don't come out of this entirely clean. I'm not just talking about the cuts; that's only one factor, but the fact that they have been the governing party for the last decade, and we have continued to see soft sentencing on their watch. They're supposed to be the party of law and order. They're supposed to be the tough party that holds criminals to account. But it has been on their watch that we have continued to see dangerous people get off on a couple of years when the gravity of their crime really merits a much, much longer sentence. I mean, this guy was on the watch list. It was known that he was dangerous. So why the hell was he released? It's absolutely infuriating. And it's reckless. So I think that Patel and Johnson know. I think they understand the public mood about this. But I'm not sure that the Sentencing Council and the Probation Service and other bodies that are responsible for what has happened. I mean, of course, the terrorist that done it is foremost responsible. Okay, he's 100% responsible. But if fanatics are going to be fanatical, I don't think that I think when they get to the point of actually carrying out an attack, it's well beyond the point of rehabilitation. There are also other factors, of course. Those who constantly attack the Prevent program and claim it's Islamophobic, they're deluded idiots, and they need to get into the real world. We have a problem with Islamic extremism in this country. So those people who are attacking any measures to try and prevent this on the ground it's supposedly discriminatory are complete. They're infuriating because they are only putting up barriers to something being done. They're effectively enabling terrorism. They may say they're not sympathetic to it, but by putting up barriers to the government doing anything about it, yeah, I would say they're enabling it. Because the Prevent program isn't just about Islamic terrorism, it's also about far right terrorism, as it should be. So I see several things. Firstly, our justice system in general, not just with terrorism, in general, needs to be a lot more honest. I think the reason why the overwhelming majority of people don't have trust is because it's not honest. Sentences do not mean what they say. You don't get what it says on the tin. Okay? So if I'm hearing that some violent thug has been sentenced to 8 years, I don't want to hear that he or she is out in 4.5 years for good behaviour or because that's the standard or whatever else it is. I think particularly violent crimes must result in punishment that fits it. And I do think the Sentencing Council's out of touch. I'll come back, I'll make another video about this specific website because there's a lot of talking points around that. But for them to say, oh, we see these things all the time, we are in touch, you're not in touch. If you were in touch, you wouldn't be issuing guidelines that state criminals should be released halfway through the sentence. That's the Sentencing Council that's doing that. So they are at least partly responsible for it. They will say, oh, it's the probation officers, it's their responsibility to determine if an individual is dangerous or not. Well, clearly they're getting it wrong time and time again. So either they're sheer incompetent or they're deliberately reckless. It's one of the two. I mean, this guy had been in jail for distributing terrorist material. So whoever made the decision to release him, they have a lot of answering to do. He should have at least served his entire sentence, and then he should have been. Well, just the fact that he was released early, it's going to absolutely infuriate people. I hope the three people who were wounded, I hope their injuries aren't too serious. They're described as not life-threatening, but that doesn't mean they're light little wounds. They might be still serious injuries. They might have permanent scars, not to mention post-traumatic stress. Just because there's not fatalities in a terrorist attack doesn't mean that there aren't victims. So this is not the last time this happens. We have an ideological struggle going on. Unfortunately, there will be other Sudesh shamans out there. I remember in the wake of the Fishmongers Hall attack, some on the left were accusing the Prime Minister of politicising it. Terrorism gets politicised by definition. A Prime Minister and a government has to take a tough line on that. That is not politicising it. That is doing the responsible thing. And I just hope that Johnson and Patel really do push this through because the public want it, it's a responsible thing, and it's a practical thing.